Hello and welcome to Week 5 of English 120. This week we'll be reading The Apostate by Jack London. It's a short story found in the Portable Jack London, pages 118 to 135. You'll also be reading his essay entitled What Life Means to Me, also found in the Portable Jack London Reader, pages 475 to 482. Our conversation will be another research conversation where we'll be critically thinking about the apostate and trying to understand child labor as it was at the turn of the century. You'll also write a reflective journal on what life means to Jack London based on your critical reading of What Life Means to Me. Finally, your Launchpad assignment this week will be on library research. Specifically, it will focus on how to do research at Napa Valley College. This is a resource that you are definitely going to need in this class, and I highly recommend focusing in on this week. Finally, your essay will be due the end of week 6, so it's not due this week. You will be getting back revisions from me this week, and please use these as a way to revise your paper. I expect extensive revisions between the draft that you turned in this week and last week and the draft that you turn in for week 6. So I want to talk a little bit about the process of being a scholar, because essentially everyone in this class is a scholar. That's the idea. This semester is about learning how to do research, how to join the conversation of research, and how to take a stand and write about a topic within a research conversation. So as a Jack London scholar, when I want to write a paper on Jack London, I begin by asking a research question. For example, right now, my friend Susan and I, my friend Susan and I are writing a book on Charmian London right now for University of Missouri Press. And one of the questions that came up in our research today was Charmian London, Jack London's second wife, was known to have had an affair with Harry Houdini, the magician, after Jack's death. And this is a very loved fact in the world of scholarship. Everyone likes to talk about how Charmian had an affair with Houdini. But we want to find out if it's true. So what we do is we follow the same, so our question is it true that Charmian London had an affair with Harry Houdini? So we ask that research question. Then you research articles about the topic that you're thinking about writing. So we read Clarice Dawes, who is also a Jack London scholar who writes about Charmian London, wrote about in her book, she wrote about the affair that Charmian had with Harry Houdini. We've looked at other essays that talk about the same subject. Then we read the primary text. So in the case that you are working on, when you're writing about Jack London, your primary text would be Jack London's fiction for your essay that you're writing. For me, the primary text that we would look at would be Charmian's actual diary. So we go and read her daily entries to see what she had to say about her affair with Harry Houdini. Then, based on that information, you try and understand the conversation about this topic that's already going on. So we'll look at why do people focus on this question? Why are people so interested in Charmian having an affair with Harry Houdini? And then we develop a thesis, so a topic and a purpose. So in this case, we would take a stand based on our research. What we find, we would say whether or not she did indeed have an affair. And we'd use our research to understand where in the conversation this thesis fits. So we would say, we do not agree with Clarice Dawes and her statement that Charmian London had an affair with Harry Houdini. Or we do agree with Clarice Dawes that, based on the evidence that we found, that Charmian London had an affair with Harry Houdini. So we figure out who's on the same side as us, who's biased, right? Perhaps someone has a bias about this topic, right? They come with their own ideas about it before they actually do the research. And is it still an important topic after you do the research? Then I draft a paper using sources to help support my thesis. So the next thing we would do is we would develop a paper that writes an argument as to whether this is true or not, using the entries in the diary to support what we're saying. To be successful on a research paper, you need to learn how to identify and locate really good sources, and then how to evaluate, read, and take notes from these sources. When I'm doing research, I use a research log. You need a place to keep notes on your sources. I have a spiral notebook, or I have sticky notes, or I actually have note cards when I do larger projects, as a place to write down quotations and then the source material on the back, because you always want to take down source material. So in MLA format, write down the name of the book or article, the author, the publication date, so you can find it again later when you make your works cited page. So for this week, we're going to actually practice using multiple sources to answer a question. This week you're going to be reading The Apostate by Jack London. This short story provides a detailed account of a young boy, Johnny, who works in a jute mill. Sadly, Johnny's life is far from fictional. At the time that London published the story, child labor was both legal and common. In fact, child labor still exists today. To better understand this topic, we'll be looking at two aspects: Jack London's own experiences working in a jute mill, and researching and understanding another critical question about child labor. Please actively read both The Apostate and What Work Means to Me before you participate in this week's discussion. So these are the questions that I'd like you to think about while you're reading The Apostate. What does the apostate mean? And there's a big hint here on the left-hand side of the page that tells you what apostate means. Why do you think Jack London named this story The Apostate? Find evidence from the text to support this. When I say this, you guys, you need to find the quotations, because you will use these later when you're answering the questions. Describe the working conditions in the jute mill. Mark sections of the text where this is described. What were the great events in Johnny's life? What is the focus of these events? How does this make you feel for Johnny? Describe Johnny's mother. What is important to her? Do you think she's a good mother or a bad mother? Why? How are Johnny's siblings different from himself? Do you think the conclusion of the story is optimistic or pessimistic? Why? What is social commentary on the fate of the working class? What social commentary on the fate of the working class is being communicated in this story? Do you think conditions have improved for the working class? Why or why not? Critically thinking about The Apostate and understanding child labor. So, those questions that you answered before, the critical questions, those are for your resources as you answer these questions. In this week's discussion forum, use your active reading notes and your answers to the critical reading questions to research question 1 and question 2, 3, 4, or 5, using the references discussed in our lecture from Clarice Stas. You will be required to create a 2-paragraph post, and when I say paragraph, I mean an academic paragraph. That means at least 7 to 12 sentences long. In the conversation, critically thinking about The Apostate and understanding child labor, and post it by 11:59 p.m. Friday night, where you cite at least 2 outside sources. Please use MLA formatting to cite any books you use. See page 338 in the Bedford Researcher for an example. Respond to at least 3 of your peers' posts by Monday at 11:59 p.m. So the first question that everyone is going to answer: research Jack London's life. How old was he when he worked in a jute mill? What was his life like while he worked there? Why do you think he wrote this story? Do you think it had to do with his own experiences? Why or why not? Was the short story written as social commentary? Why or why not? Now, choose 2, 3, 4, or 5 as your second paragraph, your second question to answer with a paragraph. What is a jute mill? Describe the process of making jute. Why was it important? Do jute mills still exist today? Describe a day in the life of a jute mill worker. Include rich imagery and detail. Or, how is the apostate a response to the times? By reading additional accounts of factory work, describe the working conditions. Why were harsh conditions tolerated? Or 4, Research the evolution of child labor laws in the United States. Who were the advocates of child labor laws? Or 5. Research the economy of the 1900s in the Bay Area. What did it cost to live during those times? How much were rents? How much did it cost to own a home? How much did food cost? What were other important expenses? Remember, you were to answer question 1 and either question 2, 3, 4, or 5. Please, as a class, make sure that you have answered all of these questions. If I log on and I see only answers to 1 and 2 and no other questions, I will ask you to I will ask people to redo their questions if they're logging on last and they're only doing the ones that have already been done. For question number 1, I'd like you to use this information. This is from Clarice Stas' book, Jack London's Women. We actually have this at the library if you'd like to look at it in further detail. This is the quotation I'd like you to work with. In 1893, while Jack was at sea, financial panic hit after securities suddenly dropped on New York Stock Exchange, and the value of the U.S. silver dollar fell precipitously several weeks later. By the time Jack walked off the gangplank in August 1893, unemployment had tripled to 12%. In just a few months, dozens of banks had failed. Thousands of small businesses collapsed. Workmen been forced out of work and families cut adrift. Unemployment would rise to 18% over the next year. Given this inhospitable climate, Jack returned not to his old buddies on the waterfront, but to his parents in their ramshackle home. His earnings from the sea did not last long. He soon found a job in a jute mill where he stood by rows of rotating bobbins, moving from one bobbin to another to attach the cord and begin another spool. The workday ran from 6:50 a.m. to 5:50 p.m. with a half-hour lunch break over a 6-day week. The spinning room was noisy from all the tightly aligned machinery and filled with the lung-clogging debris of jute fibers. The close juxtaposition of the revolving machines with the moving belts all around led to accidents, the loss of fingers and even arms. Pay for a white male was typical of factory work, about $1 a day, with fines averaging $0.25 for each work rule violation. Overall, jute mills were cited by the California Department of Labor Statistics for their use of child labor, unsafe conditions, and insensitive management. Leaving that job, Jack found another equally bad, shoveling coal 12 to 14 hours a shift for the Oakland Steam Railway. After you complete using those sources and others that you find to answer your critical questions about the apostate, I want you to think about his essay, What Life Means to Me, and answer the following questions using evidence from the essay to support what you're saying. What was Jack London's background, and what was his initial perceptions of the upper class in What Life Means to Me? What is the definition of compound interest? What is oyster pirating, and why did Jack London learn, and what did Jack London learn from his experiences as an oyster pirate about the business ladder? What is the abyss? How does London use this term in his essay? Jack London previously wrote a book called The People of the Abyss in 1903. To write this book, London embedded himself in the slums of London in order to capture what it was like to be destitute. How much do you think his experiences living on the streets of London influenced his essay? And these photographs on the right-hand side of the slide, these were taken by London while he was living on the streets in London. What compelled London to sell more muscle and become a vendor of brains? How did he do it? What does he discover once he finally makes a decent living and is welcomed into the upper class, or the parlor floor of society? Why do you think he wrote this essay? Do you agree with his statements? Why or why not? What ideas from this essay relate to the themes put forward in The Apostate? Finally, this week, guys, you're going to be completing an important research module entitled Locating Research for Information Needs. It's due Monday at 11:59 p.m. This module is critical for your understanding of how to do research at our own NBC library. That's it for this week, you guys. I look forward to seeing you online. Please contact me if you have any questions. Those of you who are having any difficulties with Launchpad, please contact Launchpad Tech Support. I'll see you online.